The hidden teachings of Jesus. The reason Jesus spoke in parables is because he knew that if he spoke plainly about his teachings, that the powers that control the world would never allow his teachings to be disseminated. And so he created Trojan horses full of truth. And the powers that be embraced Jesus' teachings, not understanding that the meaning behind these parables would expose their lies and distortions. This video will open up these Trojan horses and let the truth expose those that have hijacked and contorted Jesus' real teachings. After watching this video, as Jesus himself said, John 8:32, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." The world you live in is not real. You think that you were born into this world, but it is the exact opposite. The world is born in you. Every time you place your consciousness through the mind and the five senses, you create this world. There is a parallel world that coincides with this world that you can also experience instead of this one. After opening up a few energy centers in your body, you can experience this world whenever you want. Jesus called this world the kingdom of heaven. Jesus taught what would today be called Kundalini Yoga. Yoga is a science. It is not a religion. A religion is when you have faith or belief in another person's experience of the divine. Yoga is a systematic and scientific method of experiencing the divine. Jesus was not a Jew, nor did he preach a religion. He was a yogi. The people of his day called him rabbi because he taught about the divine, and conceptually where they were coming from, only rabbis did. Jesus was killed because he upset the power structure of his day, saying that the traditional practice of worship was not an effective way to experience the divine. Jesus preached yoga, a methodical way to experience the divine. The body your consciousness is placed in comes with a mind, and the mind acts as a bottleneck in the ability of the consciousness to utilize the brain. The mind actually prevents you from fully accessing your capabilities. As long as you use the mind to perceive the world, you do not have the capability or the capacity to understand who and what you are or what you are capable of. You were born to sin. This is what Jesus said. And this is no fault of your own, because your consciousness was placed in a malfunctioning body. The world you perceive with your five senses and mind doesn't even exist. It is a creation of the mind. Sinning is believing that you are the body and the worldly desires it creates has something to offer you. Your consciousness has only received information from the mind and the five senses your entire life. So you erroneously believe this is what you are. But if you were the mind, you could tell it to stop thinking and it would. When you go to a movie theater, you know that what you are seeing is not real. Yet you still go through a roller coaster of emotions as your endocrine system pumps out various hormones depending on what you see. And it is all fantasy. When the movie is over, you walk outside into the real world, and again you go through a roller coaster of emotions as your endocrine system pumps out more hormones depending on what your mind thinks and perceives from the real world. What is the difference? In the first example, the world you are experiencing is light being shown through still frame pictures flashing by. In the second example, the world you are experiencing doesn't even exist until you create it by placing the light of your consciousness through the filter of your mind and five senses. Your thoughts from the mind are so powerful that they press upon the unmanifested and create the world you are experiencing. When your consciousness transcends the mind and five senses and is shown through the Ajna chakra, or third eye, a completely different world is both created and experienced. As Jesus said in Matthew 6:22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Jesus is clearly telling us that we are sinning when our consciousness is placed through the filter of the mind and the five senses with two eyes instead of our Ajna chakra, or third eye, thine eye, or single. Why do religions teach us that sinning is acting on the desires of the mind? Jesus is saying that you can serve the body or you can serve the divine depending on where your consciousness is placed. When Jesus looked upon the ocean through his opened Ajna chakra, he saw vibrating energy, and since he himself was vibrating energy, he could walk upon it. When we look at the ocean, we see water, and so the physical world our thoughts create would drown us if we attempted Jesus' feet with our unopened third eye. The goal of this documentary is to help you recognize your Christ consciousness, or the second coming of Christ. Jesus is not coming back. He never left. In John 8:58, Jesus said, "I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am." If Jesus existed before his body, how could he die with his body? Just like you, Jesus is, was, and will always be timeless consciousness. The second coming of Christ is one of the most misinterpreted aspects of the Bible. The second coming of Christ refers to you recognizing and obtaining your Christ consciousness. How do you achieve this? You follow Jesus' teachings. Jesus was a yogi. When Jesus spoke the words, Matthew 11:29, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls," Jesus was referring to his yoga. The word yoke and yoga both mean joining. What is being joined? Your soul with your Christ consciousness, enabling you to tap into the universal consciousness. Your Anahata chakra with your Ajna chakra. Your heart with your intellect. How do you do this? You do what Jesus did. You study and practice the science of yoga. Ask a Catholic priest or a Christian minister what Jesus was doing from the ages of 13 to 30. Why is this period of time when Jesus went from an intellectually gifted young man to Jesus the Christ left out of the Bible? To a Christian, Jesus is the most important person to have ever lived, yet the majority of his life is completely left out of the Bible. How is this possible? How did Jesus become enlightened? And what exactly was Jesus doing when he was fasting out in the desert for 40 days? Jesus spent his adolescent years and young adulthood traveling through India, Nepal, and Tibet, studying, practicing, and teaching yoga. The three wise men from the East that visited him were rishis from India. There is no country called the East. Why do the Christian religions obfuscate these facts? Why don't they want you to know the true path to the divine? Jesus was given the option to disavow his teachings. In return, his life would be spared. He declined, saying, "My body means nothing to me. My teachings are the sole purpose of why I am here." And yet today there are religions named after him that completely disregard his teachings. Revelation 1:12 states, "And I turned to see the voice that spoke with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. And in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his countenance was as the sun, shineth in his strength." When Jesus revealed his true form to his disciple John, John saw Jesus' 7 chakras. Jesus himself said in Revelations 1:20, "The 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches." What do you do at a church? You worship. Jesus called them candlesticks. The yogis call them chakras. They are the same thing. Jesus was a Kundalini